Hi everyone, how's everyone going? I hope you've been having amazing reads. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Andre. If you don't know me, I'm the host of this channel, and today we have another book review, and as you can see, it's from The Promise of Blood by McClellan. Before we jump into our review, just don't forget, subscribe, like the content. If you're new, welcome. Go watch all our other videos and comment away, because that helps all of us and our bookworm community. And let's go with the first details of this book. So today we are starting another trilogy, and I know we have plenty of trilogies that we've started and we haven't finished, but let's just go with this one because this one I'm really excited to talk about. So this trilogy is called the Powder Mage trilogy. Like I said, published by McClellan. It was published by Orbit, and the author is McClellan. And this first book is called Promise of Blood, like I said. This book was published in 2013, so it has celebrated its first decade of existence. It's a fantasy book, and I would consider it a bit of a mix between steampunk and epic fantasy. Think something in between. And you'll understand why my indecision on defining the subgenre of this book. You'll understand it when I speak about world building. Back when this book was published, it was nominated for plenty of awards. It didn't win many, but it was nominated for plenty, and that also means that it's quite good, or it was good back then, and it was a novelty and a lot of people were excited about it. On Goodreads, this book has almost, or very close to 57,000 ratings and a score of 4.14 out of 5, which is very good, and especially because it has maintained over these 10 years or 11 years. And considering that this book was the debut book for this author, it's, I would say, an excellent outcome for the curious ones, because you probably noticed that this book here wasn't the one that I showed up in the first scene of this video, but this is actually the same book. What I showed you first was the Dust Jacket. This is from the Broken Binding subscription, and they have done an amazing work with this edition and the whole trilogy. You've probably seen the shorts where I open the boxes where these come from and I show more in detail. But as you can see, they have amazing art, and it truly looks like a Renaissance painting, or like something that is supposed to be in a museum and not in my hands, but it's really amazing. And of course, they also have sprayed edges where, as you can see, has some horses riding with the scenery, and also interior artwork. I'm not going to delve much more into this, just show you one of them. But yeah, this is truly amazing, and I really love this edition, and I recommend, if you want to buy some gifts for someone and you think special editions will be something for them, Broken Binding is excellent for that. But moving on to the actual review, or let's start with the synopsis of this book. And you know perfectly well, if you've been around this channel, I'm going to read the synopsis. If you don't want to hear anything about it, the timestamp is floating around for you to jump into that time and not listen to any spoilers. But if you want to listen to them, hopefully there's not many spoilers because it's the synopsis, but still, if you want to know what the book is about, just stick around. The age of kings is dead, and I have killed it. It's a bloody business overthrowing a king. Field Marshal Tamas, coup against his king, sent corrupt aristocrats to the guillotine and brought bread to the starving. But it also provoked war with the 9 nations, internal attacks by royalist fanatics, and the greedy to scramble for money and power by Tamas' supposed allies, the church, workers' unions, and mercenary forces. Stretched to his limit, Tamas is relying heavily on his few remaining powder mages, including the embittered Taniel, a brilliant marksman who also happens to be his estranged son, and Adam, a retired police inspector whose loyalty is being tested by blackmail. But when gods are involved, now as attacks batter them from within and without, the credulous aren't whispering about omens of death and destruction, just old peasant legends about the gods waking to walk the earth. No modern educated man believes that sort of thing, but they should. In a rich, distinctive world that mixes magic with technology, who could stand against mages that control gunpowder and bullets? Alright, with the synopsis done, let's move on to the actual review, especially because we don't have any scores to show of the previous books. So let's start with our dear plot. And I do like the start of the plot of this book specifically. Right off the bat, we get a huge event that sparks the whole series of events that will follow this. And it's something big. I don't want to spoil it, but it was impactful right from the start. And I think it was done very well, because as I was reading, I was immediately gripped, and I thought to myself, okay, I want to know how this will turn out in the future or in the next pages, because this is a huge change for this world that I just entered into. And one good advantage that I think Brian McClellan did quite well was we follow majorly 3 POVs, 3 points of view, and that way it allows us to see different perspectives of this event and how the consequences go and do their thing onto different facets of the population. However, and because not everything can be great, I felt that as we moved through the book, the speed at which the plot was happening started to increase, and it kept increasing. And at the start it's all good, and throughout the middle it's good because you feel like the stakes are increasing. But towards the end, the speed was so high that it felt that everything was just happening too fast, and everything was just being tied off quite quickly and without room for us readers to breathe and to fully feel everything that was happening and the consequences and the plot lines being closed and new plot lines opening for the next books. So everything felt a bit rushed towards the end. It almost felt as if the author didn't really have enough pages to write the ending, and so he had to summarize everything into maybe half the space. And because of that, it felt like we were just moving from tying plot lines to another one really quickly without no much to let us enjoy. But I mean, it wasn't that bad as I am saying. It was still good. It was still a great plot. It got me interested throughout. The mystery and the action, everything was done quite well. It was just this ending that was a bit too rushed. And because of that, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. What about the characters? Well, like I said, we follow majorly 3 POVs, and I say majorly because from time to time there are a couple other POVs that we see, and I think those are brilliant because it allows us an even more in-depth analysis of this world and of the plot and everything in between. I did feel that one of the characters was a bit shallow at the start. I felt that there wasn't much depth into the character, or at least not as much as it was delivered for the other 2 characters. And I think Tamaz was especially good in the character compartment because I was getting a lot of feels of a character from the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. And I'm not going to reveal which one so I don't spoil this book, but I felt that they had the same energy. And I mean, for me to compare a character that I read in one book with a character that has now 4 books, almost 5, it means quite a bit to me. However, I feel that one problem with the 3 main POVs that we got were they are also a bit too similar to each other, not in the role they play, but in the role they play in the city or in the world, let's say. This is because all 3 POVs, the main ones, are all male. They're all related to the military, even though one is a bit more distant from that, but still it felt a bit too the same, and I would have liked to have, I don't know, a female perspective, or maybe a perspective from the other side, from the side of the enemy, where I would understand why they're fighting so much and why they still believe in their cause. And that would have added, I think, more complexity to the book, and I would feel more conflicted about what the characters are doing. In this case, we follow mostly the good side of the story. But nonetheless, I still think all characters were good. There were just some bits here and there that could have been improved, but overall, this category is still a 4 out of 5 for me. And now for world building, which is the part that I'm most excited to talk about. I think Brian McClellan did a great job in creating a world that is not seen very commonly in the fantasy genre. I would say that this world is set in a similar time to the French Revolution. We see that guns have shown up recently and are being used as weapons. However, the technology hasn't advanced much further than that. And not only is this immediately creates a great ambience for the whole world, but at the same time, we add the complexity of magic systems, more specifically of 3 different magic systems. We have the powder mages, which are the people that can use gunpowder to control bullets and have a better aim and all those type of things. We have the knacks, which are kind of like random powers. They have a very specific aim, and they cannot do much more than that, but at the same time they don't really get tired of using it, unlike gunpowder, which is almost a drug for the powder mage. And then we have the privilege, which are our typical mages that just do magic while waving around their hands and can control the elements, kind of. So all of this, I think there are great magic systems. All of them have their limitations and their advantages, of course, and I think the interplay between all 3 of these in the world and with our characters was quite well done. And I think they also give a good amount of action in the way that everything rolls out from these magic systems, and it's just an advantage for Brian McClellan to use them to enhance the experience of the reader. I cannot wait to keep reading this trilogy just to find out more about this world and about the magic systems. So for me, this category is a 5 out of 5. Moving on to writing style, I think, especially for a debut author, the writing style is great. I didn't think it was too complex or it was too simple. It was easy to read. I think really the only thing I would complain is the pacing, and that is more towards the ending. And I hope that this was just a problem with the first book, and because publishers always try to have the first book wrapped up with an ending that might not require a second or a third book. And so I hope that the second and third books have a better ending, more detailed and less rushed. So for now we can only hope for that, and I will give a 4 out of 5 for this category. And finally, enjoyment. I was constantly intrigued by this book, not only by the plot, but also by the magic systems and the world. I wanted to keep reading so I could explore all of these different facets. And believe me, I left a lot of details out, so you will also enjoy just as much as I did. And it was a good mix because at the start, the plot and the events were the main driver of my enthusiasm, because I didn't know the characters that well, they weren't as gripping. But towards the end, the events were still good, but the characters were the thing driving me, and I was wanting to know more about them and see if they would survive or not. So my enjoyment ended up always staying at a good level and keeping me reading page after page. So for enjoyment, it's going to be a 4 out of 5 as well. And so we end up our categories. Let's just refresh the scores. As you can see, we got 4 for plot, 4 for character, 5 for world building, and then 4 for writing style and 4 for enjoyment. This gives us a final score of 4.2 out of 5, which is very good, especially because taking into consideration it's a debut author, it's the first book of the trilogy, so there's a lot of heavy lifting that this book has to do, and it did quite well, especially with world building. I was just amazed. I really love this world that Brian McClellan created. And this also means that I guess I'm with the average of the population, because my score is quite similar to the Goodreads score. So I can confirm that the population thinks well of this book, and it is deserved. I'm definitely left curious, and I want to read the second book. We'll do that very soon, for sure. I just hope that this book doesn't suffer from middle book syndrome. Let's hope, because lately there have been a couple of them like that. But for now, I want to hear from you. Let me know, have you read this book? What did you think of it? What is the score you give? If you haven't, are you curious to read? Do you want to see some pow 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 in French Revolution style? Comment down below and like the content as well. And if you're new, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe, and you'll be seeing me every Thursday and Sunday, okay? Have good readings, and I'll see you soon. Bye.